This is a parental advisory. If you are a parent, you are advised to take the time and review materials your children may be interested in.
You're listening to the Legendary Power Podcast with your hosts, Ken Poirier and Nathan Fraser. Get the latest free games and mods at legendarypower.com.
I'm Nathan Fraser. I do artwork and stuff, and me and Ken are working together on a new project.
I think you sorely underrepresented yourself there, because you pretty much don't sleep. You do so many things, but I'm also sort of the same way. So, but
we're very driven, entrepreneurial minded people.
Yeah, we got our fingers in lots of pies. My name's Ken. I'm the lead programmer, kind of also half designer here of WordWrecker at Legendary Power. And I'm also just finishing up my studies at IU, where I've been studying artificial intelligence and craziness for 5 years now. And I do other stuff. I write kids books and adult books, but not not
adult books,
not like erotica, but stuff that's not geared towards 7-year-olds as well. I don't know. I try to write my books for everybody, but anyway, so yeah, that's it. That's pretty much me in a nutshell, I guess. And not really, but it's something.
Look, this is me in a nutshell. So today we're going to be talking not really much this isn't a promotional podcast. This is just you listeners getting to hear the back end conversations that we have about producing this game that we're working on.
Yes, exactly. So we are planning on with this podcast having, specific issues in the industry that we want to examine and stuff. But before we get into that, we thought you really should know about us, where our perspective is, where we're coming from. So we've been working on this game called the WordWrecker for, I want to say, a year now. Has it been a whole year? It feels like a year.
It's been too long.
It's been too long, and part of the reason for that is because we are, heavily
perfectionists.
Well, I was going to say heavily divested in other projects as well. So That's part of the reason. It's not like we've been, working 40-hour weeks on this for a year. But it is a long time, and we would like to spend some more time on it. And we're working towards that. But we just want to be honest with everybody out there who's listening or interested in any of the Legendary Power games. You have to understand, I started this off in 2010 as a hobby company. I was going to school. I was finally out of my Microsoft contract, so that I could start developing and doing my own things. And so I just started doing mods, video game mods, as just, for free for people to download, play, get an understanding of how the system mechanics works and that sort of thing, and developing video games. And then you came in, I want to say in 2011, not long after, it was a year after, we started working on was it the Construct, or was it Jailbait? I think it was Jailbait.
First we were going to work on a 2D side scroller, because that's what all the video games.
July.
No,
yeah.
That was the second one. The first one was going to be the
one.
Remember Aerosol? The spray can guy.
Oh my God. Yeah. Aerosol. Yeah. We, that was
project failed.
Well, it didn't fail. The problem that we always have is we forget it's just two of us working part-time, and that we're not a giant AAA studio. So we, I think we've been basically scaling down the scope of our projects from the beginning with the whole, what would you call that? The Dog
City Chronicles, which I would love to make a game out of that, but that was a way bigger endeavor. We bit off way more than we could chew, thinking that we could get that done.
You know, and the problem is we really do want to put out something that is the highest quality. So when we think about these giant projects, we want to cram so many things in and get every little detail absolutely correct. And you just can't, I mean, you can't do that unless you're collecting like some kind of disability check or something.
Right.
And you can just stay home and work on video games. But you know, rent don't pay itself, unfortunately. So yeah, so we took that and then we tried to scale it down to the Jailbait July, which was just one character out of the Dog City Chronicles. And the problem we had with that, I think, was just it didn't translate to phones very well, and there was still a lot of details going into, because we want to make the best project possible. You know, that's really, I think, our goal always. And so trying to come up with a shooter that was new and relative, it was supposed to be a side-scrolling like flying shooter thing, and it was a lot of art and programming and design, and it was a huge scope once again. And so then after that we went to the Construct, which was supposed to be what, a little RPG battler thing,
which ended up being the most ginormous project that we ever ventured into.
It was like 10 times the size of Dog City Chronicles by the time we got through all the design and stuff, and we just barely scratched the surface. I mean, that was like a whole universe. I kept pooping out a new idea every like 30 minutes.
that idea was a brilliant idea, but suffered from so much mission creep, because it was like you would have a new idea, I would have a new idea, and we just kept piling more and more stuff on it, and it was just like this game, The Construct, which I would love to make that in the future too, but that game would require probably a whole team of people and at least 2 years of development.
Oh, just to get a proper prototype going, I think. And what was you said mission creep. So people out there listening might not know all the terms. That sounds like a good one. You want to go ahead and explain that?
So mission creep, typically, I guess there's two ways to look at it. Politically, mission creep is when a political organization declares a mission, and eventually they start needing to do more and more and more, and eventually you see this with a lot of like public goods programs, where they say, well, we're going to do this, and then they're like, well, we need to do this, and then we need to do this, and these are all related, and we have to do all these, and pretty soon a pretty good small idea turns into a giant project that's just completely unmanageable. And in the public, or that's how it happens in the public sector. When it happens in the private sector, it's when two guys who are overly ambitious create an idea, and then they're like, well, in order for this to work, we also need to have this happen. Oh, wait, if that's going to happen, then we should probably think about doing this too. And eventually you have the next great American novel that never actually gets written.
Yeah, I think maybe that might be what ends up happening to it. Is I might flesh that out as like a multi-part novel, and then hopefully that'll generate enough interest in it that we can just like raise money to actually build the game. That would be great. But
and to be honest, the concept behind The Construct, it was, if you sat down and wrote a really good book about it, it would be on par with some of the greats. Like I mean, if they made a movie out of it, it would be on par with movies like Blade Runner. The idea is there, and it's a great idea, but to try and capture you created a really brilliant technological dystopian future type world, but in order to capture it in one video game, between the two of us would take a lifetime at least.
It would have never gotten anywhere, unfortunately, just the two of us working on it. And so that I think was, and we recognized that, I think, pretty early on,
both of us pretty much at the same time. I remember the phone call when I was like, Ken, I really need to talk to you. And you're like, I really need to talk to you too. And it was like a mutual breakup where we were both like, I really think we should just see other video games.
Yeah, no, it really was. And in fact, I already had the word record idea. It came to me while I was working on the construct, because basically what I was doing, I was like, what is the very, very simplest, most basic like video game I can come up with? And that actually ended up being the world's hardest video game, which is a browser game. It's just one. It's three buttons, start, stop, and reset, and it's just a clock basically. And you're trying to, it's that basic stop the stopwatch kind of a game that used to play it as kids. And so that was like, but I was like, that's not fun though. So I was like, what is the simplest fun game I could come up with? And that was I came up with Word Record, since I was already working on new ways for artificial intelligence to parse words anyway. So I was kind of already working on that as a project for more academic reasons. And then I was like, okay, well, I can take this code that I already came up with, and then I can apply it to a match 3 game. And now I've got a match 3 game where you're using letters instead of colors, and you really like the idea, so right?
Yes, I think
I pitched it to you, and
no, yeah, when you pitched it to me, I was actually a little bit confused, but it seemed a lot easier to accomplish. So I was like, yes, I'm behind it.
Right. And so now we've been working on Word Record for like a year now, and I don't know, I feel like it has escalated and expanded out a little bit, but I think we've overall been very good about trying to keep it to its base original scope. But I don't know, that's how I feel. How do you feel about it, Nathan?
I feel like we have a very solid product already. We just need to do a little bit of fine tuning to it to make it as fun for the players to play. I think that where we're at now, and this is just me being honest, I think that where we're at now, if we get just a few tiny functions working correctly, we would have a game that people would be hooked on. And there's a lot to improve upon, but I think that right now, what we have is a game that people are going to think is incredibly fun to play.
I think so too. I've been meaning to tell you about this. I've been getting feedback on Steam from people who have been playing our original prototype that I put out on there. Although it's funny, we weren't able to really get the Facebook community to come over to Steam and play it, but people who are already on Steam seem to be picking it up all on their own, which is pretty awesome. I think their main gripe that I'm hearing so far, other than of course it's the prototype and it's got some bugs in it that are not super terrific, but they're really kind of annoyed that there's not a tutorial, that they just kind of have to figure it out on their own. So I think when we put out the alpha demo, hopefully later, towards the beginning of the summer, into the spring here, I think we really at least need like a 3-panel kind of tutorial or something, maybe just from the main menu there's maybe even just a tutorial screen where it's like 3 pages of instructions, so people have some sort of idea what's going on, if not a straight up built-in tutorial.
Yes, I agree with that. For the listener that has no idea what we're talking about, kind of let's explain what Word Record is real quick.
Sure. Do you want to do that?
I will give my take on it, and then you can add your take.
Okay, sounds great.
So Word Record, to me, it's kind of like one of those, kind of like a Tetris style puzzle game, or like Dr. Mario is one of the ones that it really reminds me of, where you have to match up pieces next to each other in order to accomplish a task, which the task is to eliminate those letters or those block pieces. In our case, the game, the blocks are actually letters. That we designed them like, or I guess you inspired me to design them. They look like children's play blocks, which is really, really cool. I really enjoy playing around with those. And you have a bunch of them on screen in your little columns or columns and rows grid section, and you move them around. And instead of trying to match similar blocks with each other, you're actually trying to spell words out. So instead of putting a C next to a C next to a C to get a score, you put a C next to an A next to a T, and that gives you a score. So it's kind of like a match 3 or whatever type game, but it's based off of spelling, and I really like it because little kids can jump into it and play it, and adults can also play it. It has a fun factor for it's not a game that excludes any particular audience, which might be a bad thing in marketing, but I think that so far everybody that I've let play it on my phone has thoroughly enjoyed it, minus a few tiny little bugs.
Right. And I think that's a really good point that you bring up is I've been personally trying to explore the marketing very heavily here for promoting Word Record and getting it out to people. And that is one of the number one things that I keep seeing popping up is you have to have a target audience. You have to, have, very much know who your audience is and gear your game towards them. But I don't think there's anything wrong with making a game that's fun for everybody. Why can't the family unit be the target? Why can't it be a game that both your kid and the parents can both play together and and enjoy and share an exchange about?
Periodically, I understand that marketing technique, which is don't go a mile wide and an inch deep, go an inch wide and a mile deep. Know who your niche audience is and go as ferociously after them as possible. I understand that. But when it comes to mobile games in particular, there isn't like a niche audience that there's so many people that aren't in the traditional genre of gamers. And so you don't have to sell, at least when it comes to, particularly, I'm going to be talking mainly about mobile when I'm saying this, but you don't have to use half naked women to sell it to fanboys. You don't have to use, science fiction to sell it or whatever. It's not one of those things where there's only one type of audience that's going to be who your target audience is. Everybody has cell phones. Everybody has tablets. And pretty much nowadays, almost everybody has computers. So we're really, if you look at some of the more successful video games out there, at least on the mobile platform, games like Angry Birds, games like Farmville, they don't have a particular audience that they're going after. Farmville isn't going after farmers. They're going after anybody that has a spare 15 minutes that wants to play a game while they're waiting in line at the bank. Candy Crush isn't going after diabetics. They're going after anybody that wants to play a game for 15 or 20 minutes at a time. So it's kind of a different market than average markets are.
Dude, you're cracking me up over here. I'm like trying to suppress it, but oh my God, Candy Crush is for diabetics and, Farmville for farmers. Yeah, farmers don't want to play Farmville. They're like, what? You do what?
You can't eat it afterwards? You do what?
Right. I've got the world's greatest farming simulator. It's called a farm. No, and that's a really good point. Even though Word Record, the setting of it is steampunk, just because that's just how we saw the game making sense, trying to, even though it's still very abstract and it's not like real life in any way. It's a video game, but it gives it a sort of understandability as to, okay, why are these people sorting words? Okay, because they live in a steampunk society and they still have newspapers, and you're putting your type fonts together and all this kind of stuff to print this newspaper. And that it's really great where we got to see the mechanic kind of dictating what the story is, instead of the story dictating the mechanic, as we see in a lot of other games today. We want to set this on a futuristic planet that's like the Wild West, so therefore it's going to be a first person shooter, or we need to sell these cute anime characters, so we're going to make a go-kart racing game. No, it's really it was the idea of the actual puzzle, the actual game that kind of gave birth to, I think, the universe, which I think is really, really cool. And you've got a big hand in that, Nathan. So if you want to add anything on that.
Yeah, so I kind of mentioned already the art style for the actual puzzle pieces I really liked the idea. I don't know whose idea it was, yours or mine, but I really liked the idea of doing them as like the old blocks that everybody can relate to, because almost everybody played with them as kids, making the old little letter blocks that have a letter on each side. That's kind of how the game puzzle pieces work. But you kind of took early on. I do the artwork, but you've given me a lot of instruction on the artwork. And early on, you were like, okay, well, this game is going to have, because of the way that it plays and because of the themes that we're going to have in it, it's got to have a steampunk feel to it. And so we've added little airships that fly in the background. We've had a lot of the game mechanics are based off of steam engine pieces. There's a lot of gears. There's a lot of steam that's going off both in the foreground and in the background. So it's got that steampunk feel, but it's not forced. It's like a perfect harmony between the way the game looks and the way the game plays. It's almost like the two led to or lent a lot of inspiration to each other.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the concept of minimum viable product, and that's really hot right now. I've been listening to a lot of other podcasts, and it pops up pretty much in almost every podcast I'm listening to right now. So why don't you go ahead and tell the listeners what minimum viable product is, and then we'll talk about how that relates to what we're doing with the word record right now.
All right. So people hate selling, especially entrepreneurs. We're not salesmen. We're actually taught from a very young age that salesmen are sleazy and salesmen are not to be respected, and they're just trying to sell you a lemon of a car and get you off of their lot and take the money out your pocket. And so selling to people is already a very uncomfortable thing. It's uncomfortable to put yourself or to put your product out there and say, "Hey, I want to get feedback from you. Is this good enough for you to part with your money in order to encourage me to keep doing this?" That's a very intimidating thing for people to do. So we avoid it. A lot of entrepreneurs, we avoid it at all costs. We'll sit there and tinker on something. We'll say, it's not ready to be released. And I've done this already with 2 products where I spent years developing 2 products in the past already, that once they were ready to be released, after years of work on them, I did not recoup hardly anything in costs. And so the idea of a minimal viable product or a minimum viable product is basically, once you have something that works, it doesn't need to be polished. It doesn't need to have all the bells and whistles. Once you have something that works, before you put any more time investing in trying to make it the perfect product, you actually put it out there and see if people want it. And if it's a good idea and it's a good product, you don't let you yourself convince you that it's a good idea. You let the market, you let the other people out there who you're interacting with decide whether it's something that you should continue on. And so the minimum viable product is basically, I've got something that works. It fills a need, or it fills a hole in the marketplace, or it serves some sort of purpose. Do you find it valuable enough to invest your time or your money into it so that I can continue investing my time and my money into it? And to me, it's one of the things that I'm going to most implement in my projects going forward. I'm about to release my 3rd software type product, and we're totally implementing the minimum viable product, where we're almost done with just something that works, and we're going to start selling it. And based off of those sales, then we'll use that money, if it sells, to go back and add all the bells and whistles to it. And if it doesn't sell, we haven't wasted too much time investing in a product that's not going to sell.
Right. And I think I'm all on board for that philosophy. It's really, really extra tough, though, when you're doing something like Word Record, because Word Record is also, it's more of an artistic project than it is an entrepreneurial project. Yes, we want to at least make enough money so that we can actually build the full product, which is great. Why we need to do this kind of minimal viable product thing. But it's really, really tough when, even if it doesn't take off, whatever we put out there is going to be a reflection of us in the future. So it even putting out a simple demo,
they will build monuments to us in the future.
I hope so. But right now we're building our own monuments and WordWrecker. I definitely think it's the first one that we've done together now where I definitely feel like, okay, we're putting it out there. With the other ones we worked on, we didn't even announce those to the public. I mean, we kept that a well-guarded secret. And then when we were thinking, okay, now when we were getting ready to finish the prototype this past summer or fall or whatever, we put it out there. But the feedback that we got on it, even though there was very little of it, we didn't do a lot of marketing on it. We just kind of put it out there for the first time. What we got was that we needed to put more work into it. And so that became our focus. That became our drive.
But that was us. That was us putting something out and then getting feedback and then using that to go forward. We didn't have people tell us, "Oh, this is a totally bogus product that you shouldn't even put any more time into it." The main
actually, we had lots of people tell us that, but
what?
But they were our competitors, so they were just trying to bash us and give us to give up and quit.
We don't do that very well.
Yeah, no, we don't. But we did get a lot of genuine feedback that people did like it. Even other companies out there who are developing their own games reached out to me and were like, "Hey, I like your game. Here's like a weird game that I did. Maybe it'll help inspire you or whatever." Maybe they were just trying to get another fan or follower or something. But even still, I talk to these people on Facebook and stuff and like, "Hey, this is what I'm working on, what you working on." So we did get that out of it, which was, I think, great. But yeah, for this demo, I think what people need to see is degree of a good taste of what a finished product would be. And so I think that needs to include, basically we've kind of already got it, we just need to put it all together, and we need an opening title screen, menu, whatever, with some kind of tutorial, and we need one piece of dialogue story for people to get a taste of, and then they need the one level to play. And I think that'll give them a good taste of what their experience will be when they play. And I want to add in that level editor idea that I had too, that I just recently came up with, so that people can make at least one level on their own and see, really get a good understanding of like how the game mechanic works. So
yes, I agree. Just real quick, I'll hit something that most of our listeners will be able to understand, and you probably will too, depending on how old you are. It just depends, I guess. But The Simpsons. I don't know, Ken. Do you ever remember watching the early episodes on the Tracy Ullman show of The Simpsons?
Tracy Ullman show? I love those. I like those better than the actual Simpsons show. Those are my favorites.
That was the minimum viable product. It wasn't all slick and professional like The Simpsons is now. There was no computer animations. It wasn't storyboards. They had gone past the storyboard version, but it was just 5-minute clips that were very crudely animated that showed off the characters and showed what The Simpsons would have to offer. And even though they were not done, with a multi-million-dollar animation team, they were done where you could get the idea of what it was, and you could see whether or not you were going to like it enough to commit more time to watching it. And for most people, even though the animation was crude, for most people, they said, "I want more of this." And then the Simpsons cartoon came out, and slowly over the years, the animation has gotten more and more professional on the Simpsons cartoon. But the very first episodes of the Tracy Ullman, that was their minimum viable product. They didn't wait until they had $1 million animation team. They didn't wait until they had a good intro song for each show. They didn't wait until they had all of the marketing and the Butterfinger commercials. They said, here, we've got this really sloppy cartoon that we think is funny and we want to see what people think. They put it out there. People loved it. And so they knew they should put more time and effort into it.
Right. But though, using The Simpsons also as an example, Matt Groening had a lot of things that we don't have. Matt Groening was already had a weekly cartoon in Los Angeles called Life is Hell. It was because Tracy Ullman read that comic and then invited him to do stuff for the show. And then he got the exposure of the Tracy Ullman show, which was huge. And that was what allowed him to actually get his minimal viable product out there. What we don't really have that, though. So,
but we have a lot of things that Matt Groening didn't have. We have the internet, we have Steam, we have Facebook, we have YouTube. So it's I wouldn't say that it's not. I wouldn't say we're in any worse of a position than he was.
Right, but the difference though also is though everybody else has that too.
That's true.
He was, I mean, sure, he had a couple of competitors. He had like Jim Davis, who was doing Garfield and stuff and all of that, and Calvin Hobbes, and he had some competition, but not nearly like the trying to shout out in the masses like we are. And so I don't want to give up on our product because we don't get a response, simply because our message just didn't get out there. Just nobody picked up on it. Nobody noticed it. Once we get that minimum viable product, as we're liking to call it here, the alpha demo, then I think what we really need to do is just put a full stop on the production of the game to focus entirely on marketing for at least the next 3 months, which should be over the course of the summer. And I think only then, after we've given it some time to breathe, gotten the word out there, gotten some feedback, only then can we make a decision. I don't want to just say, oh, we didn't get any responses in the first 30 days. Screw this. Let's go work in corporate offices for the rest of our lives.
Let's go back to Microsoft.
Yeah. No. I just don't want to go back.
I agree with you. I agree with you. I agree with you. I have faith that once people do start playing it, it's going to be highly addictive.
Yeah. Well, that's really my concern is getting people to get addicted to. Yeah. They got to get that first taste of it. Yeah.
Our video game. Yeah.
Cybernetic crack.
Our video game is like, digital crack. There you go.
Digital crack.
Let's rename Legendary Power to Digital Crack. New website.
I think
folks.
that might be a company already.
Oh, dang it!
Should double check that.
Look forward to more. This is going to be episode 000. We got a lot more though. We're gonna keep you, the listener, updated. You can go to legendarypower.com. That's the correct website, right?
That is legendarypower.com.
Yeah. That's Ken's site, and you can check out. We've got it set up to keep you informed with the latest Word Wrecker news right now. That's the biggest project that we're working on. And as demos become available, new videos become available, that's the main source to get all of that information. Going forward, I am confident about this game, and I do think that once we have something that people can play, even if it's just a one-level game, I think that people are going to love it. So once we have that out, we'll keep you informed, and hopefully we're probably our main monetization goal right now is to probably try and use Kickstarter or maybe Steam to get funding for it pre-sale. And that's another thing about minimum viable products is a lot of times people use pre-sale to see if they can get the money. And that's a very viable thing nowadays because if you can get enough money to make a potato salad, you should be able to get enough money to make a video game.
Absolutely. Yeah. The whole world is changing. The economy is changing. Dogs and cats living together, anarchy. I think that, it's a really interesting economic and social experiment that we're doing here with this game. And I look forward to seeing the results. I want to thank everybody out there for listening to the Legendary Power podcast. And we are going to try to put together a schedule in order to bring you as many updates as we can on the Word Wrecker and our progress on that. Also, we're going to be talking about our place in the industry of games and take a look at the video game industry with a number of different angles and topics and theories about the video game economy, and hopefully that will help you guys out there who are buying games or making games. We don't fear competition. We want as many people out there making as many great games as possible. We don't get upset when somebody outdoes us. That just pushes us and drives us harder. Thank you for listening to the Legendary Power podcast. Find out the latest at legendarypower.com. Music courtesy of Roll Music.
Peace.